Hey, Scotty Lauer, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Oh, there he is. How
How you
do I
doing?
sound? Okay.
Yeah. It's great to see you. And I love the Villanova kitchen farmhouse look with the hens and everything
This
over
is
the.
it. This is all my mother's work. This is I'm at Terry Souza's house right now. She's somewhere around here doing something, kind of being a busybody. You know how that goes, Lauer. You
Nah,
okay?
it's funny because before you cleared up the fact that you were in Villanova, I said to myself, that is a damn fancy kitchen there down in Waco.
I do have a nice kitchen in Waco. I swear. I swear. So Lauer, I mean, there's no better time. First of all, you and I just got to catch up personally because we're boys. But so that's long overdue. But there's no better opportunity to talk to you when we've staring down the barrel of Pacers Knicks, a series and a rivalry that means a lot to guys like you and I, because in our real formidable years, these two teams were at each other's throats. And it goes all the way back. For me, I remember, I think it grabbed me in 1994 in that Game 5 when Reggie Miller had 39 points and he does the choke to Spike Lee. I mean, from that point, as the kids say, it was on, right? And then you had, what was it? I guess 99, the Knicks won again, and then they lost in 2000. And in 99, they did it without Ewing. What's your major memory from, I just took you down memory lane for me, but Knicks-Pacers, you're a young kid growing up in Westchester, New York. You're dialed in, listening to Marv Albert. What was the big moment for you in this rivalry growing up in the 90s?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the Reggie Miller, choking symbol obviously stood out. What did he score? 8 points in the final 30?
Yeah.
Something like that?
I remember watching it with my dad. My dad, who was hard to kind of get his attention to watch the NBA, he was like, whoa, what's happening here?
Yeah, so you always have like the vestiges of Spike Lee, jarring and jabbing at Reggie, and then he's responding. But I think overall, too, it's just the main physicality. The Davis brothers, Dale and Antonio, and how rugged they were with. And then you had Oak. Oak was, one of my main guys to root for. And of course, Ewing. And it was tenacious. I mean, it was rough. It was intense. And frankly, I kind of miss those days. I mean, I know like the NBA, not to go off on a tangent, they're trying to address, maybe playoff officiating, the physicality, but I actually like when the refs allow these guys to play like it was similar to what we experienced 25 to 35 years ago. So yeah, the Reggie Miller, I mean, Reggie personifies Indiana and that kind of intense rivalry. Maybe Tyrese Halliburton can kind of be that reincarnated to an extent with Brunson. But yeah, to me, you're right. I mean, being a New York guy, growing up a fan of the Knicks, my great memory was like 94 going to Game 5 of the finals, Knicks and Rockets.
Oh, you went to that?
Yeah. That was actually the night of the O.J. Simpson chase.
You were in the Garden?
Yeah, because I was interning for the NBA broadcasting department and I was shadowing the international TV feed by the director. Brian Sheriff was his name. And toward the end of it, I ended up just going out and sitting and watching some of the game itself. And then all of a sudden, eyes were fixed over to TV monitors where the OJ chase was going on. So it was kind of a surreal evening that I'll never forget. Yeah. So that has to top my all-time New York Knicks experiences, unrelated to the Pacers rivalry.
Do you have any memory of what was going on inside the arena? Just like, because I remember, Costas was, going live pregame. There was just so many moving parts where NBC is trying to do the right thing, right, by their fans and by folks that are following this chase. And then we have this Game 5 that's being played. Do you have any memory of like the buzz inside the arena?
Well, I don't know if most fans, at the time, cell phones weren't that prevalent, right? 26 years ago, as much so. I happened to be sitting in a row kind of in the suite area with all the TV monitors. So I guess the average fan didn't have monitors in front of them.
Yeah.
And I think I vaguely remember just seeing, the subtitles, the crawl, trying to describe what was going on with the chase. So I don't think I really knew exactly what was going down other than the headlines just gripping my attention. So I had one eye on the court and one eye on the TV monitors.
That's amazing. So, and that's 1995. Right?
That was
94.
Right?
94.
Yeah.
And the first, and which would have been amazing because the Rangers had just won the finals that year. The New York Rangers did. And they won the Stanley Cup. And, that was the first time the Knicks had been to the finals since 73. So that was just an amazing time, right? In New York, and as far as sports were concerned, when you watch these series, I want to pay you a real compliment here. When you watch the NBA, more and more, Scott, all the work you did calling games in the NBA for a decade or more with the Bobcats and then the Hornets. You sound like Mike Breen. Mike, did you ever notice that? Did you channel Mike Breen as a play-by-play guy?
Yeah, he was my radio play-by-play idol. I mean, I grew up listening to him on WFAN doing all the Knicks games. And so like even one of his old sayings that he'll bring out occasionally, he'll just say, that's good. Something clean and simple like that. But when I was at Ithaca College, I remember I was stealing that, that's good. That to me was my signature thievery for Mike Breen. Paying homage to him. Yeah. But some people would be like, you sound too much like Mike Breen with that call. Or then
people would say that to you.
I remember, a couple of my buddies like, that's Mike Breen, kind of half joking, but, or maybe, you got to come up with your own shtick. Or, the Marv Albert cadence is always going to seep in when you're a New York broadcaster until you try to find your own style and personality. But yeah, Mike Breen is just fantastic. On the air, off the air, absolute A+.
An absolute A+ of a dude too. I remember you introduced me to him, and you were like, and I remember showing him where something was in the bowels of the arena in Charlotte, and he was just so cool. Well, one more thing on the Bobcats before we jump into this season presently. So I was afforded the opportunity. I was in and out for like just a couple of hours. I was in Charlotte, and I talked to a bunch of lawyers in Mecklenburg County about drug addiction and recovery from it, right? Just because they needed someone to talk to them about addiction and recovery and put a positive message to it. So these attorneys could get what they needed as far as like a criteria and an understanding for, some of the folks that they're dealing with. But to break the ice, John Woodman, if you remember Woody the Wave Man from the Bobcats, he introduced me. And so the first thing I said was, I know John and I know each other from the Bobcats. You remember Rufus Lynx, the mascot, and the orange and the blue and Emeka Okafor. And I said, that wasn't our fault, I promise. And everybody, I got a huge laugh out of it. Like the Bobcats organization is still infamous, right? In the Queen City.
When were you in Charlotte?
Just for literally on Friday. I was in there for a couple hours, and then I got there in the morning, and then I flew right up to see my mom where I am today. Okay, otherwise, you would have been my guy. I was going to
say, I'm going to give you a lot of grief if you blew me off. Like that.
No, I was in and out.
All right.
In and out. All right, so, I want to get, because I know you're watching all these games, and I'm curious to get your take on, when we look at, the odds right here, right? Oklahoma City is a favorite, overwhelming favorite right now to win the title. The Knicks, this is FanDuel updated. Knicks are plus 460, T-Wolves plus 650, Pacers plus 700. That's at least what I have. Are you surprised that, because last week, okay, like just last week, the Knicks were, I think, a 9-1, right, to possibly beat the Celtics, or a week and a half ago or whatever. And now they're the second favorite to win the title. How do you feel about the Pacers being such an underdog, right? I think the line for tomorrow night's game is Knicks minus 4.5. Do you feel, I guess that's a long way of asking a question. Do you feel good about the Knicks and the fact that they're favored now to make the NBA Finals?
Yeah, because I think, look, going up against, of course, a healthy Tatum and the Celtics, even though they would have beaten the Celtics had Tatum lasted it, but that was a surprising effort. But now the path is so much easier, in this round. And I love Indiana's stick-to-itiveness, and I can appreciate, how hard they play and the coaching with Carlisle. And they're never down and out, kind of like the Knicks. But Indiana's, they've gone through an injured Cleveland team in the last round. And again, I'm not trying to take away from them. And even before that, Milwaukee not at full strength, and they're not the deepest, most well-rounded team. So I think the path to get here was a little bit easier for them. I think what New York proved in the last series, they can beat anybody at any place. And I clearly thought Boston was going to make the finals again. To me, New York is just a tougher team overall, and I'd be shocked if they lost the series. So I think it's more of a case of matchups. You're right. The interesting part is they were like 9-1, as you said, heading into the Boston series. Now they're prohibitive favorites, but I think it's because of who they're playing. And again, I give Indiana great credit. 2 straight years in the Eastern Conference Finals, but to me, New York feels like they're poised and they're ready.
How do you feel about the Knicks? It's funny, dude. I'm sitting here right up the road to Villanova, right? I'm dyed in the wool Villanova guy, right? I bleed blue. I still, at the end of the game, and I know that he's produced, but is Jalen Brunson really the plan here? Are we I don't know. How do you feel about that? Like the Knicks in crunch time and Jalen Brunson being the guy.
You still aren't sold on Brunson?
I know.
It's your run in New York, what he's done.
He's an amazing player. There's no question about it. First team All NBAer, I believe. But yeah, I guess I guess you know what it is. It's the size thing. It really is. I still discriminate on and I've watched all the games. Like I'm a witness to it, but it still feels sort of strange that he's your guy with 10 seconds left.
I know. And that's why he was a second round pick. He didn't fit the mold of what an NBA player should look like in his underwear, right?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to a lot with evaluation in some people. And even now, years into the league, you look at him and it's a marvel. It's like how if he had the physique of Russell Westbrook, everybody would say, of course he's a surefire Hall of Famer. He should have been, a top pick. But sometimes it's more than just look. And I think his guile, his footwork is extraordinary. He is such a heady player, obviously a phenomenal character guy, but making the clutch shots. Yeah, I think I still think some of us are non-believers because of the physique, but we have to move past that. Ultimately, to me, he is the most intriguing player left in the series, in the finals for each conference. I'd rather have him than anybody. That includes Anthony Edwards. As amazing as his athleticism is, I trust Brunson more than anybody else. And I love Halliburton too, by the way. And he's smooth and he doesn't fade away from the moment. But to me, now Brunson's the guy. In the last minute of a game, I trust him more than anybody.
What do you make of you being around the NBA for as long as you were, traveling with the team, being on the buses, the language, how guys, all the notes. And to see Halliburton be most overrated, voted by his peers, right? What do you make of that? Where does that come from?
I think it probably just comes more from maybe the fact that he's a little polarizing, possibly in his personality. Because no, he's not the most overrated. Look what he's done in the last 2 series in crunch time. No, he hits big shots, and he had a down stretch to start the year by his standards. But I think again, he can play a little bit of the villain role, and maybe that rubs some people the wrong way. So I really didn't think much about that, other than the fact that it was somewhat unfounded for him to get that label.
Who are two? Give me 2 guys who need to step up for the Pacers, for them to upset the Knicks and win this series.
Ooh, I mean, Miles Turner's been playing really well. He's going to have to continue to play very well. And I could see him matching Karl Anthony Towns in production for sure. I would say, more kind of X factors, like Nembhard's had a really good run in shooting. I think, he needs to be very consistent. I've always been intrigued by Aaron Nesmith because I've just loved his tenacity. And again, it's a big if, but if the shot is falling for him, he's a definite plus player. So I think you're going to have to get a lot of that type of production out of those guys. And, somebody like out of nowhere, like an Obi Toppin having a great game or two. And he is capable of that as well. But I'd be stunned if the Knicks don't win fairly easily. In fact, I'm going personally Knicks in 5 and OKC on the other side in 5.
Really?
Yeah.
So, all right. So Knicks, OKC in the finals. Who you got?
Yeah, no, I picked OKC preseason to make the finals against Boston. I love OKC. I'm going with them all the way.
You are.
I think their last series will prove to be the most difficult in their postseason run.